Wait, Marvel, so how much did our property make? Far From Home. Just looking at the box office results. Actually looking 1.132 billion. Look at what our creative direction has done to Spider-Man. Moving forward, we want 50% of the profits, not a measly 5. You can fuck right off.
Many months later.
Yeah, we're completely screwed without Marvel's creative direction. And there's too much fan backlash. We've got to negotiate something. Okay, poker face. Poker face. Yes, we are here to renegotiate a deal. Seems so. Come to renegotiate our 50% offer. 15% is a generous offer. Consider it your lucky day. 40%. 20%. You're practically in bed with my wife at this point. Yeah. 30%. That's my Tesla dream gone. No. We're not budging. You make a deal or we walk. Uh-huh. Really? 25% is our final offer. Or we go online and start ordering the Xbox Series X and Series S in bulk. Fuck! They got us! Fucking deal! It's me, Beef Duke, and today we're here for the 4K Blu-ray unboxing and review Spider-Man Far From Home. I've even got my t-shirt on in support of my own video. Directed by John Watson, Spider-Man Far From Home. It is the last movie in the Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, set straight after the events of Avengers Endgame. I am going to be talking about Avengers Endgame here for a moment, because if you haven't seen it by now, it is like one of the best-selling films of all time, and you should have seen it by now. If you haven't, then I'm sorry, but you should have. That's just a fact. As we know, every one of the main cast in the Spider-Man Marvel Cinematic Universe series is blipped out for 5 years, and those main characters did not age. So when they were blipped back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everyone around them has basically aged 5 years, yet they're still the same. Following up to Spider-Man Homecoming, we actually take Peter Parker, who is played by Tom Holland, actually goes on a vacation, hence the title Far From Home. Yet again, there's trouble brewing and in store for Spider-Man. The first section of the high school trip is actually set in Venice, Italy. This is where we are introduced to the new mysterious Mysterio, aka Quentin Beck, who is played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, just to sum this up, Peter Parker is actually dragged back in. There's a lot of inspiration because of the death of Tony Stark, that now Nick Fury is actually looking to make Spider-Man the leader of the new Avengers, because there was a lot of the main Avengers that took their exit from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Peter Parker, like every other Spider-Man film in the past, always tries to balance personal life with responsibility of being a superhero, and this film takes a burden on Peter Parker. It balances his needs, wanting to spend time with Mary Jane, Yeah, and he always gets dragged back by Nick Fury. However, his friends always get dragged into a scenario between Spider-Man and the villain, which always mostly seems to turn out good for Peter Parker in the end. The first half of this film is more of a school romantic comedy, then it kind of disguises itself with that theme, but it is a superhero movie overall. Then Far From Home then moves over to London, and it's set in several different places as the movie unfolds. That's the gist of the film. That is where it starts and where it heads off into. Put some positives in this film. Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man in the previous Avengers films does a lot of small scale things. This Spider-Man comes into the MCU quite late on in its life cycle. Spider-Man gets treated as doing a lot of small scale things. He's always played more of a side role than a main role, but now that a lot of the other Marvel Avengers have signed off, they've done their bit, now Spider-Man is filling the big boots of Tony Stark, and this film does a lot to rectify that. In fact, that is what this film is entirely about. It is about Peter Parker being forced with a lot of responsibility by Nick Fury and Happy. Happy's back in this film. Yeah, he's called Harry Hogan, but we all just call him Happy. Like Tony Stark's assistant, but Happy's now like Peter Parker's assistant. Strangely enough, he's very happy in this film because he's secretly trying to flirt with Mary Jane, and it comes off as a bit weird. It is obvious, but he tries to hide it. As Marvel like to have their comedy segments in a lot of their films, it's really funny the way that they try to hide it, but it's blatantly obvious, and Peter knows it's happening, he just doesn't want to explore down that path because it's going to creep him out. I just want to talk about the pacing of Spider-Man Far From Home. This film had a very, very good pacing. It had a lot of variety in it. One moment you're developing comedy and characters, the next you've got Spider-Man shooting out webs in Italy. There's another moment where you've got a romance developing between Mary Jane and Peter Parker, and his responsibilities are getting in the way, and each and every part of these segments nicely positioned in there. 1 minute you've got comedy, then you've got action. So much put to each character, you're so invested in the characters that the story narrative just flows. You're never bored of the action, you're never bored of the characters. This film flows like most Marvel films, flows like a lovely river, it just flows. Beautiful narrative. There's actually a section in Italy where all the high school kids get a free upgrade from Nick Fury. Nick Fury is like trying to pull Spider-Man out of his life and his comfort zone and make him the Avenger, rather than have all the high school kids with the two teachers that on board go down to the carnival where it's all going to kick off with one of the elementals. We'll get into the elementals in just a moment, but Nick Fury, to make it safe for his friends, just randomly pull some connections, pull some strings. The teachers are like, wow, we've got a free upgrade to the opera. These tickets are hundreds of pounds. And all the school kids are like, no. I mean, who the hell would want to go to opera in high school? Ned, played by Jacob Batalon, Peter Parker's best friend in this, who is the only one at this point in the film that knows Spider-Man's secret identity. If Peter says, look, this is what's going down, I need you to cover for me, Ned's like, right, no problem, we'll do it. The high school teachers get these free upgrades to the opera, to a 4-hour opera. Ned's like, yeah, I'd love to go to a 4-hour opera. Yeah, great. And everyone's like, ugh. So they go to the opera. You get a moment with Peter and MJ. There's a jealous high school kid that tries to get in between Peter and MJ, and he's like, look, MJ, I'll save you a seat. And she's like, not interested. She's like, always, like, you can see this sort of to-ing and throwing between Peter and MJ in sections of the film, but it just never comes to materialise earlier on. And this is where his responsibility is. He's promised Nick Fury, right, I'll be there, I will drag myself out of my personal comfort zone and I will help Mysterio deal with the elementals. And there's this moment where the Marvel MCU comedy just plays off these near-miss moments where it could spend time with MJ, but no, it gets dragged out of it because the audience is so invested in these characters. They manage to just play it off so nicely. Peter Parker at this point is literally dressed up for the opera, at the opera, and he just literally says to MJ, look, go over there, save me a seat, I'll be over in a minute. Ned. He's straight over with Ned. Can you just tell MJ I'm feeling sick, I gotta go. And they play these sections off with comedy and it just makes you want more. I honestly love when a film like throws something at you and doesn't give it you straight away, and it teases you and then it just keeps you invested. It's just like being down at the gym on a running machine, just running, trying to get that pizza on a piece of string. And if you've just glitched on, I love pizza. Now, Jake Gyllenhaal, shout out to Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. This film kind of sets up the villainous plot that there's these 4 elementals from the multiverse. The multiverse hasn't yet opened up in the MCU just yet. However, we're kind of sold the story by Quentin Beck after he goes up against the water elemental in the Italy section earlier on in the film. He says he's from a different Earth, he's from the multiverse, and so these elementals, they've destroyed his planet. The strongest one is the fire elemental. If he goes near metal, then he gets stronger. Apparently, Quentin Beck's already destroyed 3 out of 4 elementals. He destroys the 3rd one, which is the water elemental, which we see earlier on in the film. And he's like, Peter, come on, stand up. I want to be one of the Avengers. We will stand together and defeat the fire elemental. Once they defeat the fire elemental after the opera segment, and he saves his friends, Ned and his new girlfriend. There's a massive plot twist. If you go into a film and the villain is not set up to be made out so obvious by halfway through the film, and it looks like it's nearly the end of the film when it's about halfway through, you just know, watching films over decades of time, that there's something coming up, a twist. How is this film ending so quickly? And the twist here is that he's befriended Peter Parker. He knows who Peter Parker is. He's on board with Nick Fury. And what Quentin Beck is after, after befriending Peter Parker, is Edith. Edith is what Tony Stark has left in a box for Peter Parker to lead the Avengers. And Edith is some glasses that has a computerized interface within the glasses which controls all of Tony Stark's satellites, Iron Man suits, everything of Stark Industries he controls through Edith. And Peter Parker, after helping Quentin Beck destroy the elementals, sits at a bar, is like, right, let's go get you a lemonade because you're under 21. Funny. Because he's so mighty and heroic, and he's older and he doesn't have to deal with school life. He gives access and the glasses and Stark Industries over to Quentin Beck by giving him voice recognition access as the main user to the glasses, because Peter Parker has come to the decision that he can't balance his superhero responsibilities. Again, this film does this very well, and he's like, I just want to be a neighbourhood friendly Spider-Man. I think Quentin Beck, you should be the leader of the new Avengers. So he gives the glasses to Quentin Beck, leaves the bar, spin on it. Hey, Quentin Beck's a bad guy in a minute. He's not, he doesn't have superpowers. So what were the elementals? How has he managed to float around and zap people with interdimensional beams? You know, what's going on here? It's a bunch of ex-employees of Tony Stark. We've got Quentin Beck, who developed the technology behind Edith. He used to work very closely with Tony Stark as his second, but Tony Stark didn't approve the holographic technology that he developed through the glasses, and Tony Stark just dismissed him and called his Project Bath on stage. It actually takes reference to a previous film in one of the Avengers films, which makes a good spin-off to bring that back. And the whole Quentin Beck Mysterio is just an illusion. It's a bunch of drones that hover around the latest holographic technology, and he's got that many that he can basically project massive projections of elementals, and people are fooled to seeing what they're made to believe to see. At this moment I was kind of disappointed at first when I saw it in the cinema, because Mysterio is such a great superhero to have. His powers are amazing, he looks good. I was sold straight off the bat with what he could do, and I thought, oh my god, if he ends up being in the Avengers and having his own film, I will love this superhero. I was a bit disappointed but kind of happy at the same time. Mostly disappointed that he wasn't real. However, such a good villain. I always thought, you always need a good villain that could match a good superhero, but we're beyond those days now. If you can have a smart, normal human villain that has something about him or a ways and means of trickery to be such a threat to your superhero protagonist, and that's what we've got here, then, you know, fair enough, and that was sold on me. However, I kind of wanted Mysterio to be real. They can, however, bring him back down the line from the actual multiverse. A good version of him, that would be amazing. Marvel, hope you're watching this, take note. Now, we have to talk, and this is why we warned about spoilers in the beginning. We're talking post-credits, the spoiler. Spider-Man is swooping through New York City with Mary Jane, and oh my god, J.K. fucking Simmons is Jane Jonah Jameson, the same actor. Actually comes upon the news. Yes, we're not back in the olden days of the Daily Bugle. We've jumped forward in time. Jumps up on screen. It feels like we're back in the old days with the original Spider-Man. J.K. Simmons is like, Spider-Man, he's a villain, and Quentin Beck actually photoshopped some footage to make it look like Spider-Man was villain the whole time with the drones, and that he killed Quentin Beck. Conspiracy up for everyone, and that's where the next film's going to take off. But not only that, they actually came out and Quentin Beck says, not only is Spider-Man the mind behind the villain, but Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And Spider-Man's like, oh shit, and then credits roll. That is a way to finish a film. Now, the only negatives I've got about this film, two negatives. I kind of already mentioned it in my positive section about this segment of the review. I was very excited on the fact that the possibility of the multiverse opening and then having new possibilities. There's so much stuff you can do with that. If like people want Iron Man again, you could recast Iron Man as a different person, or there is an opportunity for this coming up in the future with the next Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. I'm very looking forward to that, because that is going to open up so many possibilities for Phase 4 of the Marvel MCU. And the other disappointing thing, the only one thing I want to mention, is Spidey sense. Spider-Man says in the film, my Spidey sense isn't working at the beginning. And because his Spidey sense isn't working, when he's getting hit left, right and centre with the holograms, when Mysterio reveals that he's a villain, he doesn't know what's real, what's not, and everything just hits him, and it's like, okay, why is his Spidey sense not working? Nothing's mentioned why his Spidey sense isn't working. Then towards the end, the last segment where we actually defeat Quentin Beck, now he just goes, right, Spidey sense work, and it works, and he overcomes it, and that just doesn't make sense. Do a quick unboxing with the 4K Blu-ray version. I want to support the Blu-ray market and keep these coming. You always get the best sound quality, you always get the best picture with the Blu-ray disc. I love Netflix and Amazon Prime, but I don't want to be stuck between licenses, having to go on one platform than another. I always love to own my content and have physical copies, because if I want to pick up a film, I've got it in my collection and I can watch it. So very cool front cover. He doesn't want to be known as Spider-Man in Italy because he's on vacation, so he wears a black Spider-Man costume and calls himself the Spider Monkey. And we've got a dual section in London when he takes off against Mysterio. At the end, on the back, it's got a quick synopsis of how to play 4K Blu-rays. You need a 4K Blu-ray player, 4K tele, etc. A quick description of the film. I always like these because they've got cool sleeves on, and then same again on the plastic cover. And then inside, if you notice on the front, it says 4K plus standard Blu-ray. So inside we've got no digital download code. These do retail obviously in the UK. We're in the UK here, so I'm talking UK currency. 25, but after a while down to 20, or if you get them on a deal, you can get 2 for 30 something. So you've got the 4K Blu-ray disc if you've got a 4K tele. However, if you've got friends that, you know, don't have 4K Blu-ray players, which a lot of people don't these days, you've got the standard Blu-ray disc if your friends borrow it. Surely everyone's got a Blu-ray player these days now. Based on what I think to this film, Beef Duke scale, that means that this film is a...
Duke.
YouTubers, if you enjoyed this review, just go down there and smash that like button. And then if you want future videos from my channel in the future, just scroll on over to the other side, hit that subscribe button, and if you want notifications as to when those videos go live, just go down there and touch that bell. YouTubers, I'm Beef Duke.